Hello, Social 130 folks. Welcome to our discussion of Learning Unit 2. And in this particular video, we will be reviewing the major concepts and theories covered throughout chapters 5 and 8, which correspond to our second learning unit. You ready? Okay. Let's begin with chapter 5. While most folks are familiar with these terms and may be able to understand the difference between them, I just wanted to make absolutely sure that we were on the same page. So really quickly, sex refers to the biological, physiological, and even chromosome background of a particular individual. So XX, XY, sometimes there are chromosomal abnormalities where there's a triple X or just one X. But point being, we're talking about the body and its physiology. Whereas gender refers to the social or cultural expectations and behaviors associated with somebody of a particular sex. My favorite example to illustrate the difference is the example with regards to women and the expectation that they close their legs when they sit or that they cross their legs. In that particular example, what ends up happening is that assuming the body is fully functional, there's a torso, there's head, there's legs, and so on and so forth, then a woman has the capacity of sitting with her legs open. So it's not an issue of biology, but rather it's an issue of what society deems is okay or not okay for a woman to do. And that is the aspect that refers to gender. Similarly, when it comes to nail polish, more frequently that's associated in terms of gender for women, but men can also put on nail polish, again assuming that they have hands and fingernails. However, it may not be as acceptable for a man to wear nail polish, and it's not to do with their biology, but rather to gender, which is a social construct. We're going to now move on to chapter 6, and I wanted to clarify a little bit from attachment theory. The premise of attachment theory is the suggestion that what happens in the very early stages of a person's life can potentially impact the relationships they have in the future. So the suggestion that if a child had a mother-infant relationship that was secure, then most likely they would model secure relationships when they become adults. Or they'll model avoidant and anxious relationships given their experience at the earliest stages of their life. Or possibly the avoidant. So I just wanted to clarify that with attachment theory, and note that there are multiple researchers that have studied attachment theory at different stages of people's lives. That's why you'll see folks like Ainsworth, Hazan, and so on and so forth, because it's been a theory that's been developed and applied by different researchers. I'd also like to clarify a little bit of Sternberg's triangular theory of love. And for that one, I wanted to discuss the 8 different styles from the combination of intimacy, passion, and commitment. So I'm just going to provide some more examples of each. So non-love is when there's low intimacy, low passion, and low commitment. So my favorite example of non-love is when you walk past a stranger. There's nothing there. Liking is when there's intimacy, but passion and commitment isn't necessarily present. And the best example for that one would be for those folks who have friends, and I'm not talking about friends with benefits or friends that you secretly are in love with. I'm talking about platonic friends that there's no romantic feelings towards. With regards to infatuation, in that particular situation, we're lacking intimacy and we're lacking commitment, but passion is full blast. The example I like to utilize, and I apologize for it, especially if you haven't seen the film, or if you have and you're not a fan of the film, is the first installment of Twilight, so the very first Twilight film. And my example for infatuation is when Edward sees Bella for the first time. It's that love at first sight, passion overcomes him, but there hasn't been the opportunity to either be committed to Bella in this particular example or to have that intimacy because they just literally met. So that's infatuation. With regards to empty love, this is when the intimacy and the passion are pretty much gone. So what ends up happening is that the commitment is still there. So the best example for that is a couple that is actually married and is staying married despite the fact that there's no more love between them, and possibly they haven't been intimate either physically or in terms of going out. They just haven't been together. Like they're married, but they're not really interested in spending time with each other. So that's the example of empty love. With regards to romantic love, the example for that one is any currently successful dating relationship in which you're exploring the possibility of becoming more committed to each other. With regards to companionate love, in that situation, you have high intimacy, you have low passion, but you have a lot of commitment. And the example I'd like to use for that is a couple who has been together for a really, really long time, and they still enjoy doing things together, but they are not necessarily as frisky as they used to be. With fatuous love, there is no intimacy or very limited intimacy, and there's a lot of passion and commitment. The best example for that would be what happened with Kris Humphries and Kim Kardashian. So these are folks who really didn't get a chance to bond, to really develop closeness, but they definitely had that strong feeling, which is passion, and they were definitely committed to each other because they went ahead and got married, even though that relationship ended up in a divorce. What was it, 2 months later? So that's fatuous love. And the last one is consummate love. This is the most difficult type of love to attain. However, I would argue that the most strong and committed relationships are examples of consummate love. So the strongest, most committed relationships would be an example of consummate love. They have a lot of love, a lot of unity. So that's why they would be that particular love. And yes, it is possible within your own relationship for the love to change. So for example, you may have started off as romantic love and then possibly decided to get married, and maybe you have accomplished consummate love. Or you were at consummate love and the intimacy started fading out, the passion possibly, and then it changes. So it is possible for the love to change according to Sternberg's theory. All right, now we're gonna move on to chapter 7, and I wanted to clarify sexual desire and sexual response. So desire, or particularly sexual desire, is the psychological component that refers to the sexual drive that makes us receptive to sexual activity. Literally what that means is that you are ready to partake in sexual activity in terms of the readiness of your mind, if you will. Whereas sexual response encompasses the biological aspects of sexuality, So if we're talking about someone who has the external genitalia of male, it would be tumescence. So someone who is sexually aroused would have blood flowing to the external genitalia, so the penis becomes engorged, enlarged, or erect. And for women, when it comes to the biological aspect of sexuality, if they are aroused, then we're talking about becoming lubricated, at least in terms of external genitalia. So that is the difference between desire and response. And it is possible to have desire and not have the response, in which, when that situation arises, sometimes folks may decide to take a little blue pill. And it is possible to have a response without the desire, and that has been stated in cases of sexual assault. And I won't elaborate there, just it can happen. And for chapter 8, I wanted to talk about heterogamy and homogamy. So the way that it's described by Benocritus, heterogamy simply means that when you have the opportunity to make a choice, you end up selecting somebody who has very different characteristics to you. So I'm going to use myself and my husband as an example. My husband, hello. My husband is Egyptian, and he happens to be younger than me. And let's see, he also has a different level of education than I do. So in that situation, I would argue that our relationship is much more heterogamous than it is homogamous. Oh, and of course, in terms of religion, he is of a different religion than I am as well. And homogamy is the assumption that you select somebody that has similar characteristics to you. So in the case of myself, if I had selected a partner that was of Mexican heritage, happened to be Catholic, happened to have a master's or a PhD, and at that point in time, it would be a more homogamous relationship. There are other terms that sometimes people use interchangeably, which is an injustice to having two different terms. So heterogamy is often utilized with exogamy or interchanged with exogamy, and I wouldn't recommend making that substitution. Exogamy usually implies that a person doesn't have a choice, that they have to select or have been selected for them somebody outside of their particular group, or somebody who has different characteristics, whatever those characteristics may be. And with endogamy, it has been used interchangeably with homogamy. However, endogamy again implies lack of choice. That someone is selected for you, or you must select somebody within your particular group or having very similar characteristics to you. So it could be on the basis of religion, on the basis of class, and so on and so forth. So heterogamy, you have the choice and you select somebody different. Exogamy, you don't have the choice and you have to select somebody different. Homogamy, you have the choice and you end up selecting somebody similar to you. Endogamy, you don't have a choice and you must select somebody that's similar to you. I hope this clarifies some of these important concepts, theories, and terms throughout Learning Unit 2, and I look forward to continuing a conversation about these concepts in the future. Y'all have a wonderful day.